podcast you're about to listen to is the account of the tragedy which befell two middle aged men. They could not have expected, nor would they have wished to watch as many bad movies as they have. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon became a nightmare. For 3 weeks, they subjected themselves to dive into the gore and carnage in Texas. Over 350 movies have been reviewed for their show, yet none of the franchises could have prepared them for the reboots, prequels, and next generations. This is their tale. Welcome to the Mostly Pod Out Night. Mostly, I'm Graver, joined by my co-host Salem.
Hello.
This is episode 107 of our weekly All Things Horror podcast. Let's dive back into the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. All right. Yes, week 2 of Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and let's say I would say this is a mixed bag week for the franchise. What do you think?
Yeah. We get the first official reboot here.
Yes.
And then that reboot gets its own sequel. But then after that, it's kind of like a Halloween scenario where they just kind of pick and choose what films they're going to be a part of or not.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them are like, oh, this is a direct sequel to the first one. It's like, okay, well, so was the second one, which was done by all the people who did the first one.
Yes.
But yeah, from this point it goes off the rails. But I guess at the end of this show, we're still technically, we're okay. There's only 2 timelines. everybody has been on board so far. It's after this is when it gets wacky.
Right. At this point in time, the 2003 reboot and the 2006 sequel, prequel, requel, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Sequel, prequel.
Yeah, it's this is essentially the Rob Zombie Halloween movies of the 2000s. Right. It's just like its own thing that I don't think these
only if John Carpenter was a part of it and okay with it.
Well, yeah, and that's the interesting part is we'll get into that later. Just we have these remakes like we did the Hills Have Eyes, right? And all the remakes of the aughts generally I don't feel we're like given the blessing from the original creators, but yet here we are with Tobe Hooper and I already forgot the other guy's name.
Yeah, her name.
Her name.
Kim Henkel.
Yeah.
She's the one that did the 4th one.
Oh, that's right.
So
Holy
technically,
shit.
technically the 4th one is done by one of the original people. Obviously not Tobe Hooper, but the other one.
You would never have guessed it.
No, not really, no.
All right, so like I said, we'll be going over the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Next Generation, which came out in 1995, the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre reboot, and 2006 prequel. Our outlets this week will be the same as they are for the entire franchise that we're doing, which is Bone Sculptures out of 10. So, as my Salem knows, I had to essentially watch this movie twice, the 1995 The Next Generation, because clearly I forgot a lot of stuff.
I will also correct myself. I, in my error, assumed the name Kim was a woman's name. It is incorrect. It is a man named Kim.
Okay.
Kim David Henkel. It's the full name.
So let's get into this, shall we? Which there was much, let's say, debate, I'd say, about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Next Generation, with predominantly putting Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger at like the forefront of all the marketing.
Well, yeah, they did. I mean, they were in the movie, right? I mean,
Yes.
they're significant enough characters, right? But when they filmed it, they were still on the cusp of becoming who they were, and they had their big breaks, like both of them almost immediately after this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, even though the film was only filmed, 2 years previous, their agents were like, please do not release this movie because, it was going to come out after their big breaks. So of course their agents and blah, blah, blah thought it was going to be a step back for them, because it is, you've seen the movie. Would you? I mean, I mean, I depends on the person, I guess. But if you're Matthew McConaughey, or I guess more importantly, Renee Zellweger, do you want this to be the next movie that people see you in?
Hell yeah. No, no.
Well,
I would
I don't
not.
know. Again, it depends on who you are. You know, some people would not care at all, but obviously, some people they're going for a certain image, especially around this time period. Yeah, they're not going to want to do that. And there was a lot of back and forth. The studio eventually went, "Hell no! You know, we have big names in this movie. We were planning on losing money on it. Like, no, we're going to make money on this thing now. Like, deal with it."
Yes.
And they did. I mean, there was a lot of, from what I understand, legal back and forth. But of course, I mean, the film was done. They signed their contracts. There's nothing they can really do.
Right. And is originally titled Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though it's been 5 years since the last one, since Leatherface.
Yeah.
So let's get into the subplot. Like I said, it's not necessarily a whole lot to these movies, let's face it. But essentially it is 20 years later after the events of the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which takes place. They're saying this is 1994 when this is taking place, and we are introduced to our core group of characters that aren't the Sawyers at a prom.
Yeah, it's a very like John Hughes-esque intro here.
Yes.
Like a decade too late.
Yes, that's that's a great way of putting it. So anyway, they go in there, they're like, "Hey, where's this, this girl's date?" "Oh, I saw him out back or whatever out front," which doesn't really matter, but he was making out with another chick, and like, "Hey, you know what? We should get past this. This is our prom. So let's go." I think Renee Zellweger gets no. The other chick, she gets into the guy's car. He's like, "Oh man, you're gonna ruin my dad's car," blah 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 blah. Anyway, they're kind of driving past, and we get Renee Zellweger in the back. And I'll just put this now as they stated, "You're so ugly, you wear glasses."
Yeah. I never got that. There was always like, there's these like, women that are like model level looks, right?
Mhm.
And they put glasses on them and like, they just kind of like let their hair sit limp and like, "Oh, you're so ugly."
Yes.
It's like, what are you looking at? Like, what are you looking at? Have you never seen an attractive woman like without makeup on before? It's like, that's all you're doing. I don't understand.
Yeah,
But I
trust me.
guess that's why it was made fun of. Like, I mean, like, no, not another teen movie spoofed on it. Like,
Oh yeah,
took
yeah,
her glasses off and all of a sudden she was prom queen.
yeah. So anyway, her character, Jenny and Sean were just smoking pot in the back, and like, "Hey, let's
Allegedly.
allegedly, yes," and
We don't see them smoking the pot.
correct, and her friend, I guess Heather, make it kind of like, "You have boobs, why don't you show them?" Once again, this is a very 90s thing. So anyway, they're just like, "Hey, let's ditch the hell out of prom," which good for them. Prom sucks. And
I wouldn't know.
so they're driving. They essentially hit someone else because what I'd say these movies go with that no one watches the road in Texas.
It's Texas.
Yeah, right. Um, so anyway, they hit kind of another car, and he's kind of unconscious. And so they're like, "Hey, we're gonna go." It seemed like only like 2 minutes, like in the movie, and like in the middle of nowhere. But there's like an insurance agent that's there, and they meet her, and we introduce with her because like, "Oh man, there's these kids there are you know doing donuts in their on her property," and she shows them by showing her tits. That'll
Yeah.
teach them.
Right.
Hmm. So she's like, "Oh, don't worry, my boyfriend, he will come, and Vilmer will come and get his truck. He'll come pick you up." Um,
She gives off big, like, high school teacher that sleeps with her students vibes.
oh, easily.
That's what I got from her. Like, she thinks she's all gorgeous and hot, but yet she like tries to hit on like 15-year-old kids. Like that's the
Right.
vibe I'm getting from her.
Right. I will say that at some point in time later in this movie, when we see her after this, that Renee Zellweger's character doesn't have her glasses. Like, you look so much prettier without your glasses. And so she's like, hey, we're going to, go back to the wreck. You kind of, we left kind of like a couple of people there. So anyways, kind of happening. So we are introduced like kind of the idea of the tow truck from, I'd say, number 3, right? That's trying to give the same vibe of the tow truck. And, essentially Vilmer just kind of kills the other guy who was like not moving, but not really dead. But he's dead. As he kills him.
He was like, I don't know, unconscious on the ground, and he just like clearly snaps his neck.
Yeah, he's like, oh, he's dead now. So anyway, he goes, kind of after the other guy that was staying back with the cars, and just kind of kills him. Runs him over repeatedly. So anyway, this is for being the biggest state, one of the biggest states in the country. They're able to walk to this other farmhouse that's there, and then we get I'd say, they kind of get lost in the woods, and we get our classic scene of the other chick that's not Renee Zellweger, Heather, getting chased by a chainsaw, as we do. And I'll flat admit, this is the scene that I clearly missed in the first viewing.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. There's a chainsaw like at least halfway through.
Clearly, I must have fallen asleep during this and only saw an hour 18 minutes. I had it in my notes like hour 18 minutes, still chainsaw, and you're like, no, 40 minutes. Like, oh, shit.
Because after you said that, I was keeping time on all these movies, like when the chainsaw came out.
Yeah. So you're correct. So anyway, he's able to like capture her, and she gets put into like a freezer, which is a very common thing that we see throughout this franchise. So anyway, we are introduced to kind of trying to think of what happens next. So they get back into it. We're introduced to like the other guys, which is what's his name? Like W.E.
Yeah, letters. All you need to know about him is he's just like another guy that's there.
Yeah.
And he has all these like stupid quotes.
Yes.
And that's all you need to know. He doesn't do anything else. he's in a bunch of other scenes, but he literally doesn't do anything. He's just there saying stupid quotes all the time.
Yes. And I just point out, Vilmer is Matthew McConaughey with his, they call it cybernetic leg or bionic leg in this movie.
It's neither.
Well, I mean,
because
call it
both
that.
of those would insinuate that it was controlled by the user, which it is not. It is controlled by a remote control, which would mean it's just a robotic prosthetic.
Yes. So anyway, while that's going on there, the other guys, the other guy that's there, goes into the house. He's like, has to go to the bathroom. He finds like a decaying corpse in the bathtub, and he's kind of sneaking around. Then boom, we get the sledgehammer to the head.
There's a lot of these I'm going to bring up later because I thought they're fucking hilarious. Is the chick disappears, Heather, right? She's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And Leatherface is chasing this dude around the house with the chainsaw. And then he closes the door and goes, haha, close the door. And then proceeds to just casually stroll around the house and then go into the bathroom. Last time I checked, the chainsaw could go right through a door.
What?
You know what I'm saying? Like, if somebody's chasing you with a chainsaw, closing a thin wooden door is not going to keep you safe in any way. And he closes it as if he's now in Fort fucking Knox. He's like totally cool. He's in an unfamiliar house, just casually strolling around. After he just got chased with a guy in a mask and a fucking chainsaw.
Mm-hmm.
and his girlfriend is gone. And oh, whatever,
Yeah.
everything's cool. And then manages to stroll all the way around the bathroom, take a leak, then turn around and see the dead body in the bathtub.
Yes, there's a lot of just dead bodies like mannequin throughout the house, I would say.
Correct.
We
But
have
I
the
mean,
sheriff, we have the people at the table.
the bathroom has like three things in it:
Yeah.
a bathtub, a sink, and a toilet. I don't know how you don't see a rotting dead body or smell it once you as soon as you enter in there. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. That's very true. But anyways, he's probably killed with a meat hammer or sledgehammer, which is the I don't know who's been killed more in this franchise. We'll have to run a tally of sledgehammers or chainsaws. Because sometimes you live from getting bludgeoned in the head, and sometimes you don't.
Yeah, I would say if it was like the first four, you get it even running. But after we get to these next two, it's all chainsaw.
Yes.
So up to this point, yeah, there's a fair tally where it could go either way.
Yeah. So he dead, and so then Heather gets hooked, put on the meat hook as normal. So anyway, Renee Zellweger shows back up at the wreck, and she meets the tow truck guy. And she's like, he's like, hey, I'm here to pick up, let's get a ride. And while they're driving, he's like, hey, you should look in the back. She's like, no. He's like, do it. Look in the back. I'll make you look in the back. And it's just her friend and just the dead motorist is like, ha. And then she does, dives out of the truck and hides behind two trees that are skinnier than she is. And with he's like, oh man, you're not gonna like what's back there. You'll get yours. I'm like, she's right there. You go get her. But no.
He's got a robot leg.
That's true. That's true.
Maybe, and we know by now that his remote controls for his robot leg are out of batteries.
Yes, he has multiple remote controls. So anyway, Leatherface shows up. She's chased back into the farmhouse, and she sees like mummies essentially as mannequins throughout the house. We have our typical thing while she's flees up there. She climbs to the top. She climbs on top of the satellite antenna, and then proceeds to go down the cable.
Yeah,
that's going into the trees for some reason.
If you have ever touched a steel cable,
yes,
you know that it will hurt your hand just like grabbing it. It's not.
It will slice your hand open.
If you try to zip line down it with your bare hands, it will tear your fingers off your body.
Right. But she does
we're in movie land. Yeah.
Oh
it's
yeah.
Okay.
And so I can see why Leatherface had a problem going through the door with his chainsaw, because he had many problems with that flimsy metal with his chainsaw. So
there's a whole lot of that scene you just talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I have at least 3 bullet points.
I don't
that we will discuss later on, because it is ridiculous.
Yes. So anyway, she manages to escape and go the 100 feet to the real estate agent's house. Everything seems so close to each other.
Well, everything it's like expanding, expanding or shrinking based on like story need.
Yeah.
Because it took a long time for her to get to the car crash site, and then a long time for her to get to the house the first time, and then she teleports all the way back immediately.
Right.
The second time. So.
And keep in mind that Leatherface, for being a big guy, is able to run these distances too.
He, ever since the first movie, he has been a large man that can run for long distances. So.
Like stupidly long distances.
Correct.
So she gets back to the real estate agents, who's still open at whatever time of the night it is. I don't know anymore.
It's dark.
Care. Yeah, it's dark. It's been dark the entire time.
We can reasonably assume it's not winter. So yeah, I would say it's 8:00.
Yeah. So anyway, she gets there. She's like, oh man, what's going on there? She calls her boyfriend, the real estate agent. She's like, she's still here. And they come and attack her with a cattle prod and put her in a bag, like a plastic bag, and she gets put into the trunk. And then the real estate agent is able to go through their local Portillo's, I guess, that also has pizza.
Bud's Pizza.
Buds, yeah. But
Bud's
also has
Pizza.
burgers. And she's like, what you got in the trunk? You want to see? I do. His manager yells at them, and like cops show up. And like, she's like talking to the trunk with someone tied up. She's like, I'm gonna cut an air hole for you. Don't scream. Cops show up. What do you got in the trunk? You wouldn't believe it if I showed you. All right, move along.
She used her feminine wiles. This is all explained away with feminine wiles.
There you go. That's fair. So anyway, she's able to get out of the trunk because I don't remember how she got out. Just happens.
No, she got all the way back to the house and they pulled her into the house and she was tied up in the chair in the house. And they brought her to that kitchen table and then they were all fighting over dinner. And that's when Vilmer came in and started like, you know, beating his girlfriend up, beating W.E. up, and then like
cutting himself.
Cutting himself and doing all these weird threatening things to Jenny's character. And then his girlfriend was trying to like stop him from doing that and then telling her, oh no, he's not, he's just really upset today. Like kind of like deflecting and trying to like justify his like insane actions that he's doing.
It's okay because sometimes they give him permission to do this in the secret society.
Yeah. Well, the funny part is, I don't know if you noticed the name of his trucking company.
No.
That was written on the side of the tow truck. It was Illuminati Wrecking.
That's right.
So basically, the girlfriend explains to Jenny, I think her name's Darla or something. I don't know. It doesn't.
Yeah.
So she basically explains that, well, I can't leave Vilmer because the people he worked for won't let that happen. There's like very, very powerful people that he works for, the people that control the world, which is, again, the Illuminati.
Yes.
Insinuated. And again, at this point, I'm just like, okay, so somehow he has he's like a cult leader that has all these people convinced that he's like this great person, because a lot of cult people do that. They convince you, oh, I'm in contact with all these secret people that you can't know and only I know. You know, so that's the kind of shit that they do. But the next scene here,
yes, and a guy just shows up with in a limousine, comes up, shows his scarred stomach. Yeah,
right. First they set the table, and we have the traditional Texas Chainsaw family dinner scene with all the bone chairs and everybody's there. Even Grandpa is there.
Grandpa looks no different than any of the mannequin corpses they have everywhere too.
Right. Yeah, and he looks like a corpse, only like later on he just gets up and walks out and never shows up again.
Yeah, he just leaves the franchise.
Yeah, he's just gone.
He's never to return.
He's never there before this point, and he's not there after this point. He was just there to say, hey, look, we had a grandpa here, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then they're all sitting around the table. Vilmer's doing insane shit and like threatening her again, and then again this Illuminati guy shows up.
Shows his scarred stomach with like nipple clamps, but in his stomach.
Right. Yeah, they're like obviously like weird S&M. I call them the pain Illuminati. Because so he's basically saying like, oh, you're here to do horrible, horrible things for our enjoyment, is what they say, right? And he's obviously very rich and very powerful, and even Vilmer is afraid of him. Like he'll talk some shit, but he won't actually do anything against this guy.
Right.
And the guy knows it. Like he is not fucking around. So then he just kind of throws his weight around and then leaves.
Well, not after licking her face all over.
Well, yeah, like again, he does that when he's showing off his weird, ab rings or whatever they are.
Yeah. So that happens. She's able to kind of escape. And so he's then kills Heather with his robot leg that is remote controlled.
Right.
And then he kind of he knocks his own cohorts. He knocks him around with a hammer, right?
Well, yeah, he's very angry that the guy like came in, threw his weight around and whatever. Right. And so, Renee Zellweger runs away,
Well,
We-
after 5 minutes of remote play with his leg.
right. Yeah. So she gets out, and then it's light, night.
Yeah.
They always do that. Whenever like the dinner happens, like
The-
8 hours have passed somehow.
right.
So it's night again. It's tomorrow morning, and she finds the Winnebago with the
Yeah.
old couple in it.
Don't put it over. Don't do it.
Yeah.
She happens to get in the RV, and then Leatherface kind of just comes around, and they run him off the road, and oh shit, there's Leatherface and Vilmer chasing her, and then we get like North by Northwest plane coming after them, which knocks, seemingly kills, Vilmer.
Well, Vilmer is dead,
Yeah.
and then
So anyway, yeah. So Leatherface is like screaming and doing his weird dance, and then the limousine pulls up, and she gets into it, and oh my god, it's the weird scarred tummy man. And he's like,
you also left out that Leatherface is in like full drag.
oh yeah, with like he skinned,
Like we're talking silky dress, like a silky evening gown,
right,
like big full like styled up wig, like full makeup,
and cut the breast and torso part of a woman off and wears that in front of him too.
yes, correct.
Yeah, is definitely a drag queen at this point in time. So anyway, Jenny gets in the back seat. She's like, I can either take you like to the hospital or like back to it, right? She's like, okay, I'm gonna go to the cops or hospital. She like, I'll go to the hospital, and then we see someone on a gurney going like, I wonder what happened to her. Now I looked this up, and this is gonna be a spoiler. It's Sally Hardesty,
The original one.
the original one,
Yeah.
who's not dead. But somehow something else happened to her 20 years later.
Well, yeah, I guess John Larroquette could have been lying. Who knows?
Because it's anonymous in the credits, right? So you're not supposed to know. It's never credited as a name.
Right.
But it's the actress that played Sally Hardesty. 20 years later, very close to Leatherface again. Why? We'll never know.
Yeah, because they never. This movie didn't quite take off.
No.
Like they were expecting, so it didn't. It kind of ended here.
Yes.
This timeline, because technically, I guess we could consider these first four in the same timeline because they don't directly counteract each other.
Right. Yeah, and it's alluded to that this family kind of adopts Leatherface. The rest of his family's dead.
I guess they don't. Yeah, they don't officially call him a family member.
No.
In this film, the second one they did.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, the third one they did.
Yes. And this one, like, get him, Leather, get him.
Yeah. So they treated him kind of the same way, and accepted him in the same way.
Yeah.
But he wasn't technically. I guess they didn't refer to him as a family member.
No. So that's it. First thoughts for me is, my God, I have not watched this movie in a very long time. Probably not since like 2001. Probably the last time I watched this movie.
I watched it in the late 90s because I remember I watched the entire franchise up until that point, which at that point was 4 movies.
Right.
And I watched all 4 of them, and I have not seen it since then. So the last time I saw this film, it was on VHS.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's how long it's been since I've seen it. 3 and 4 I have not seen since they were on VHS. This is the first time since then.
Yeah, it's. I can see why a lot of people give. If you looked at number 4, I can see why people might give it a lot of flack, especially the franchise, because of 3 and 4 have been so outrageous.
Well, I think 4 has some of the same energy that 2 has. But 3 really killed that energy before it got there. You know what I mean? So like when you see 4, you're not expecting that 2 energy because 3 already killed it.
Yes.
I guess it's a weird it's a weird placement. It's a weird way that to do the franchise. It's very odd. But I mean, to be fair, the third one was a bunch of people that had nothing to do with the first two,
Right.
and they made it into a. I believe we, talked about it last time. They made it into like just the generic kind of slasher film,
Yeah.
and then this one they're trying to go back to that mania that the second one was, and it's just kind of like at this point that energy is kind of dissipated, so that this isn't really going anywhere. This isn't really hitting, and that's why this timeline died here.
Yeah, I mean, it to me it felt like very improv, and just like whatever weird shit you're able to think of, let's do it. What you got?
Yeah, I think it was just that same wacky manic energy that the second one had, where it was fucking all over the place. The second was a lot better controlled,
Yes.
and done better. I mean, I love it, but I think this one tried to have that same energy.
Yeah.
Didn't
it
quite
couldn't do.
make it. Yeah.
I'll start with my highlights. I found it interesting that they brought back John Dugan as a cop at the end. I'm like, oh, it's John Dugan who actually did stuff with this. I like that a lot. I like the fact that there's this unexplained Sally Hardesty cameo. Why? We'll never know. But it's interesting.
Well, I think
it's interesting where they think they were going to go with this.
Well, I think because at this point, like again, the guy that was the co-writer from the original came back. He wrote and directed this movie, so it was kind of like a going back to the original.
Right. That's why they call it the return.
Right. Because they were. I don't think anybody was happy with the third one.
No.
Right. They were like we want to go back to it. So I think, what he did is he went from the first one, it was him and Tobe Hooper. The second one was all Tobe Hooper. And then this one is like, I think his version of continuing Tobe Hooper's 2.
Right. It's kind of like we discussed when a original person comes back to a franchise, the return to for him, right?
Right.
And that's what he was going with.
Right. And so like he was coming back to it. And I think if he was able to make a next one, it would have been the return of, a lot of the original people from the first one.
Right.
Yeah. But it, obviously that didn't happen, but
yeah,
I think that's what they were kind of trying to go for.
Right. I thought it was funny and weird. You talk about, the teacher, right? If you're going to go do donuts in someone's property and you're punished by being flashed, I don't think that's going to stop you from doing it.
No, not at all. And that's what I'm saying is like, she's like trying to like cultivate this like chaotic energy with this insane shit that they're doing. Like they throw rocks and break her windows and then she like flashes them to make them go away.
Yeah.
No, she's doing that because, she's getting off on it and so are they.
Right. And like I said, this was just a weird family dynamic, but I'm just trying to think of other highlights I can talk about. Is it chaotic? Yes. That's all I got for my highlights. What are yours?
Highlights in this is, I mean, obviously seeing Renee Zellweger and Matthew McConaughey in this kind of movie. Yeah. I mean, because I felt like they kind of jumped in being like big stars, like from the beginning. Like they really felt like that. I'm sure there was some little movies that I missed out of there, but they really felt like they kind of dove in and hit it immediately. And it's interesting seeing them in these kind of crappy roles that all actors have to do to get where they're going, and it's fun seeing them there. I did like the Pain Illuminati. That was so out of left field and so strange. Like, what is that? What does that even fucking mean? We don't get any explanation. We don't get nothing. But it's there.
Yeah.
But it was there. But again, like that's kind of what I like about this is there is some like genuine insanity in this movie. Like stuff is happening where you're like, what is going on? what is fucking happening here? I mean, definitely original for sure, right? It's just insane stuff happening. Like certain scenes, some scenes are just your generic kind of horror movie stuff happening,
Right.
but some scenes are like just generic shit, right? Like what's with the robot leg?
Who knows?
No explanation, no idea how he got it. If did he build it himself? Did somebody else build it for him? Why does remote controls work? Why does like any remote control work? We don't get any answers. They felt like putting a robot leg in there. They felt like having a vacuum hose going from his leg to his belt. I don't know why, but it's there.
It is, yeah.
But yeah, it's just goofy stuff, and of course, I like that they were trying to bridge the gap between the later sequels here and the originals. I think that they probably felt like Sally was done dirty in the first one. And then, she died a couple years later. Like that was a kind of a lame thing for a final girl to happen, right? Especially after seeing all the 80s and 90s, all the things that the final girls get to do.
Right.
And Sally just died.
Off screen.
She died in a nut house somewhere because she couldn't handle it. Like that kind of sucks.
Right.
So I think they were this was like they were trying to like bring that back and do it better. Obviously they didn't get that chance, but they tried. At least they brought him in. I thought that was interesting.
That's all you got for highlights?
Yes, that's all I got for
highlights. All right, let's roll into your low points.
All right, so the whole prom, I don't know what the point of the prom was. Again, it's like they tried to do like a John Hughes movie a decade too late for no reason. There's so many characters that they introduced at the prom that literally don't leave the prom. There's like teachers and friends and like Jenny's mom.
Yes.
All of these characters that are never spoken of again. It's like so much money had to have been spent on making that prom and shit. And it literally never, it couldn't have been anywhere. They could have been them at a fucking burger stand. It would not have mattered where they were. I don't know why they did the prom thing. It's so weird.
No idea.
I think they were just big fans of John Hughes and he wanted to do his own version of it. I mean, Barry, good old Mr. Gaslight, right? She's like, I caught you making out with her. And he's like, oh, what? I can't even kiss my friends anymore? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I mean, dude, he was gaslighting her hard.
But he did say anymore, knowing that he did it beforehand and that she knew it. So,
right? I'm like, this dude is in a fucking class of his own. But she was like, him and her were made for each other because they're both terrible, terrible people.
Yes.
But the whole glasses equals ugly thing is like, again, like it's Renee Zellweger, right? I mean, I'm not a big fan of Renee Zellweger, but I don't think anybody calls her like ugly.
No.
She's wearing glasses. Like, oh, you're so ugly. I don't really.
That's on my list. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the whole robot leg thing is just weird. It's because I like the idea of a robot leg being there, right? That's the insanity part that I like about this. But like, there's so many things that don't make sense about like why does he need a remote control to use it? Like, does he have to hold the remote control in his pocket like when he's walking, and he has to know exactly when to hit the buttons to like make his leg retract and extend
or
to, like,
driving
walk normally? Right. It's weird. Like it's I don't know. There's a lot of things that I don't get, and I was thinking way too long on it. It was bothering. I mean, Leatherface in this movie is not good. I mean, the whole wardrobe, the whole way that he is portrayed in this, he's just portrayed like a mental patient.
Yeah.
I mean, it just like all crazy all the time. Just like randomly changes clothes, masks, just like acts weird, but like always like weird dramatic flourishes with his actions. It's very strange.
Look what you did to the door.
Right. Like, yeah, and his acting is just not good.
Yeah.
It was very strange. And the one thing that really pissed me off, okay, because that WE guy, right?
Yep.
Texan, rural Texan. He would not quote Ulysses S. Grant.
No.
There's no fucking way a rural Texan would quote Ulysses S. Grant. No way in hell. Robert E. Lee all day long, but never Ulysses S. Grant. No. I did not believe that for a second. That's why I didn't really believe any of his other quotes, because like they're just pulling quotes out of their ass. They don't even like try to make sure they're relevant. They're just pulling out quotes.
Yeah.
I think he had like Machiavelli and Ralph Waldo Emerson in there. It's like you guys don't know what you're doing. Anyway, yeah, like chainsaws and shotguns can't get through doors. Yeah, close the door. I'm protected, guys. Everything's fine now. Which was fucking ridiculous. I mean, the chainsaw is not really prominent in the movie. I mean, it gets used a few times, but it's not. Even when the chainsaw is not being used, that they tend to like the camera tends to like go and show chainsaw shots every now and again, just to remind you that this is a chainsaw film. This one didn't really do that. It was kind of focusing on the chaos.
Did anyone die by chainsaw in this movie?
By chainsaw. I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
How did Heather die? Oh no, she got her head crushed.
Yeah.
The
other guy got hit in the head with a hammer. The other guy got run over.
Yeah, the other guy got his neck snapped.
That's it.
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't believe they did. It was just there's a lot of flourish, or maybe. Well, no, I was gonna say maybe the old couple, but that was only by like happenstance. They died from the car accident.
Yeah.
Anyway, now what I was talking about before, we were talking about the chase scene between Leatherface and Renee Zellweger in this house. Now, I don't know what was going on here, but it was like every scene of that chase was like so badly done. Like when he's going to chainsaw through the door, there's literally pre-cut lines in the door. You can clearly see them. And like I was like, oh, I wonder if that's where the chainsaw is gonna pop open, and it did, and the chainsaw stuck in, and then that piece that was pre-cut fell out. Like, wow, what a shock! I didn't know where that was gonna go. And then when they're up on the roof and they're climbing across the roof, you can clearly see big old fucking handholds, boards stuck into the ceiling. I was like, the roof. I'm like, oh, I wonder if she's gonna go to the left of the chimney because of course she is. There's big old handholds there. It was just so badly done. It was like you guys are supposed to like try to hide that stuff.
Right.
That's like part of the movie magic. They just like left it out in the open like they forgot. Yeah, it was anyway, there's probably more, but I'll stop. So yeah, I'm done. Go ahead.
All right. When we're introduced to the guy, he is peeing facing the parking lot.
Yeah.
He's facing people while he's peeing, which is weird. Once again, so ugly she's got glasses. Stupid. Hate it. I would say once again, the remote controlled leg overall. Like, we didn't need a 5-minute remote session of his leg being controlled. I didn't need that in my life. Let's see here. I would say that did they even say they're cannibals? Because you'd think with the state of the bodies they have up there, they just let people decompose without taking the meat off.
Yeah, I mean, this movie really felt to me like it was more of an Ed Gein situation.
Right.
So they weren't eating people, they were just like using them as furniture.
Because if you're gonna eat people, why'd you get 3 pizzas?
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, they were obviously not planning on eating people, even though she was bringing the girl back with her.
Yes.
So if they were planning on eating her, why would she stop for pizza first? So yeah, that's a fair. And when they were sitting down eating family dinner, the pizza was there.
Yeah, reheated, which is pointless of getting to-go pizza
in a toaster.
Yeah, right. So I said, so the dead bodies bothered the shit out of me. It was like, they should be eaten. They should just be bones, not meat left on it for cannibals. So that they really got rid of that aspect of it. I
think the only one they really kind of heavily implied it was in the second one.
Yeah.
Well, I guess the third one too. But they never actually show them eating anything.
Right. But it's not even implied. They're just crazy people.
Right.
God damn, you're talking about the dramatics. Like, the Leatherface's squealing and screaming was just atrocious. Um,
Yeah. And again, like his whole like drag dramatic dance performance at the end was
and I have this in quotes. Skin. His skin was like baby powdered silicone.
yeah. And I think the part that bothered me the most was is like he had his mask on and then he had a piece of skin like on his neck.
Yeah.
And it was like the fakest looking thing I've
Yes.
seen. It was like it was very bad looking.
Yes. Like what did you kill? Because nothing was that skin color in the entire house.
Maybe he got one of the Golden Girls.
Maybe. And okay, so I'd have to explain it. When Matthew McConaughey gets hit in the head with the plane, his blood is very purple.
Well, I mean, technically, we don't know if he's human.
That's true. That's what I was thinking. Maybe it was some like motor oil mixed in with blood from his leg.
I don't know. I mean, who knows? Maybe the Pain Illuminati are just alien, and they're somehow possessing human bodies, and they get off on trading those bodies pain.
I look at him like, is that supposed to be blood? Because if that's blood, it's never any color blood I've ever seen. That's what I have for my low points. Else we could talk forever about this. So once again, we are doing number of bone sculptures out of 10. I will go first for this. I give the last one 4. I did not like this movie. I will go down to 2.5 bone sculptures out of 10. How about you?
Again, I actually like this one better than the third one. The third one again felt very kind of soulless to me.
Mhm.
It just kind of made like a generic kind of slasher movie, and it's after 2, it deserved better. Now this is more of the energy of 2, but again, it came way too late.
Yeah.
So it's not a good movie. I mean, as we just finished talking about, there's a lot of bad things, even filmmaking, acting, all kinds of bad things here. But I feel like that energy is really trying to match 2, and I really felt if this would have been 3, I think it would have been much better received by the people who like 2. I know 2 was very divisive in the whole community as well,
Yeah.
but I think the people that like 2 would have liked this if it was 3.
I can see that.
And I feel like 3 being what it was kind of killed the juice for this one. But anyway, if it was the sequel to 2, I would enjoy it much more. So I'm going to give it a 5. 5 bone sculptures out of 10.
All right. Why don't you take us through the 2003 reboot timeline of Texas Chainsaw Massacre?
Yes. So yeah, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003 starts off kind of sorta the same, right? Where we got a bunch of hippie kids driving in their not a VW bus this time, it's a Dodge ripoff of the VW bus, but more or less the same. There's a little bit of a shakeup here. Is there's no Franklin, there's no person in a wheelchair. It's I don't think anybody's even related in this group. They're just all friends. But anyway, it's Jessica Biel is the big name here. Her boyfriend is the driver guy. What's his name? Kemper. Or no, maybe that's his last name.
I mean, it's his name tag says Kemper on his his gas station attendant's outfit.
So he's Kemper. Then there's a guy named Morgan who kind of sort of plays the Franklin role, but again, he's not an invalid as they called him in the first one. He's not in a wheelchair. He's just kind of like the socially inept one.
He's annoying.
I guess. Very annoying. Yes, he does fulfill the Franklin annoying part, but at least he's not like in a wheelchair and making people help him get around and stuff like that. He's not that annoying.
Right.
He's just regular annoying. And then we have their friend, his name, the blonde kid.
Yep.
And then a girl who they apparently picked up hitchhiking earlier named Pepper. And we know her from Blair Witch 2.
Oh shit!
She was the witch lady, the red haired witch, the Wiccan lady.
That's naked.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
Yes, that's yes, that's Pepper. That's really the only. I mean, the other people you've seen around, like they've been in other stuff, but Nothing that I could like remember. Nothing significant. But
Right.
they're around anyway. So they're driving. The whole graveyard part is taken out. They stop at the you know gas station, kind of the same creepy vibe there. But the main thing that we're getting here is they pick up a hitchhiker who in this version is a girl who is kind of like mentally not all there.
Right.
And so they pick her up, because obviously it looks like she needs help. They're trying to talk to her. She's just like not responsive. She sees the sign for the gas station that says like barbecue this way. And she starts freaking out saying, "You're going the wrong way. You're going the wrong way. You can't take me back home." And they're like, "What the hell does that mean?" She pulls a gun out of,
Her crotch.
yeah. Well, I mean, it may have been tucked in her underwear or something. I don't know, but it came out of the crotch general area. And then she just shoots herself in the head.
I mean, in fairness, that barbecue at that gas station does look dubious and probably more painful than death.
Right, right. So she shoots herself in the head. There's a kind of a neat scene where they like everybody gets their shocked face and the camera zooms out through the hole in her head.
Yeah.
Through the back window, and then they see her head like flop over. Of course, they're all panicking. Pepper gets out puking, and everybody's just like freaking out. What the hell do we do? Obviously, this is the 70s. There's no cell phones.
Well, they went
So
to
it's like,
Mexico for some marijuana.
yeah, they went to Mexico to buy a pinata full of marijuana. So they're like kind of like, we don't want to call the cops. So Kemper just like throws, I don't know how much money that's even worth back in the 70s into the
Today's
field.
world, thousands.
Yeah, that's a lot of money he just casually tossed in the field. But so they go to this like shady gas station. There's like an old lady behind the counter who's like very unhelpful. They're like, "Hey, can we call the police? There's a dead girl in our car. She shot herself. We need to figure out what to do." So they try to they call, or does she call for him
Yeah.
or whatever? Yeah. So they say they get a hold of the sheriff, and the sheriff's like, "Oh, I can't be there. You got to go meet me at this mill."
Which is like an hour away.
Right. Yeah. It's like, oh, it's like an hour up the road. They're like, we have to drive an hour up the road to meet the sheriff with a dead body in our car.
Yep.
Yep. So,
Sure do,
so
honey.
yeah, yeah. So they drive to this mill, and they're all, they all kind of get out like, okay, what do we do? There's no sheriff here. Like, what are we, supposed to do? They wait around for a while. Nothing really seems to happen. They meet a creepy little, I don't know, goblin child. I don't know what you want to call it. He looks like he has like sharpened teeth. Like he does not look like a normal human child.
Let's call him a child from the people under the stairs.
Right, yeah. But yeah, he looks like a very little goblin child. Anyway, he obviously like knew the girl that killed herself, but he's not really saying much. But they do convince him to say like, where's the house that you live or you came from, the nearest house to call help from. And he goes, "Oh, it's you can't get there by road, but it's a quick walk through the forest. I can show you." They go, "Okay, let's go." So at this point they split up. To where we get I believe Jessica Biel and Kemper go to the house.
Yes.
And then the other three stay back.
Correct.
So it's Pepper, Morgan, and the blonde haired guy. I don't remember his name.
Scared teen number 4.
Right. Or no. Oh no. Okay. Now never mind. I was thinking of a different scene. Anyway, so they go to the house. They knock on the door like the guy in a wheelchair with no legs answers. They're like, "Hey, we need help. We called the sheriff. He said to meet us at this mill. He's not there. Can we call the sheriff?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure. You can come on in." But he stops Kemper. He's like, "I said she can come in. You can't come in." So she comes in, calls the sheriff. The sheriff's, he'll be there soon. And then the guy with no legs, like, pulls himself out of his wheelchair and pretends to be like helpless so he can sexually assault
Well, he was
her
empty. He had to get out of his chair to empty his catheter.
right, and yeah, this colostomy bag,
Yeah.
whatever the hell is going on. So yeah, he's basically just like sexually assaulting her, like when she's trying to like help him into the wheelchair. And while all this is happening, Kemper tries to like come in the house to like see what's going on, and he, instead of going where she went, he goes upstairs and he finds like a room with somebody watching cartoons, whack hammer to the head. She I believe she, yeah, oh yeah, because I was gonna say I think Leatherface does show up and chase her a little bit, and she gets really scared and runs, but she makes it out, and then she makes it all the way back to the mill, but not yet. The sheriff shows up to the place. This is when Jessica Biel and Kemper are at the other house. The sheriff, R. Lee Ermey, shows up where the other three are there. He makes Morgan show him how the girl killed herself. But I guess before that, they wrapped her body up with saran wrap and then put her in the trunk of his car. And then he makes him show him, how did she kill herself? I want you to sit exactly where she sat and put the gun in your mouth. Show me how she did it, all that kind of stuff. Jessica Biel comes back, I believe, at this point. Yeah, because I was going to say there's two girls that he forced to be in the dirt there. And it was Pepper and her, because she came back. Where did the blonde guy go?
Where'd the blonde guy go? Did he?
I don't remember where he went.
Where did he go?
I don't know. It doesn't matter. Anyway, so whatever it is, he gets in a big fight with Morgan. They're screaming on the outside of it, like, oh, you got to get out, you got to do something. So I believe they. I know she runs back to the house again, but this time, to try to sneak up and figure out what to do. But trying to remember what the hell else, like where everybody went from this point, because I know a lot of them, some of them didn't make it.
Correct.
Anyway, I know Morgan, he gets put in the cop car, and Pepper gets put in the cop car and brought back to the house. Okay, no, I think that all three of them get put in the cop car and brought back to the house. With the dead body.
Yeah, so hold on. So the guy, Andy, gets killed trying to save someone. That's how he dies. Because what happens is I think the cop calls Leatherface to come there. Is that what happens?
Again, I know he died around that time. I just don't remember. I don't remember what happened to him. Anyway, so all of them get back to the house, and then he brings in the body. He brings Jessica Biel. I know gets put in the basement.
Yes,
because she sees. Oh no, that's right. The blonde guy was down in the basement, hook on the meat hook.
Yes, that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so because Kemper at this point was already dead, and Leatherface skinned off his face and is now wearing his face.
Right.
And so the blonde-haired kid got hung up on the meat hook in the basement. Jessica Biel got thrown down in the basement. Morgan, I believe, gets killed at this point in time, but Pepper gets away, and then she goes. Is she the one that goes to the other trailer, or is that Jessica Biel after this?
Pepper's killed at this point. She's rather being chased.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jessica Biel tries to sort of save Andy that's hung up on the meat hook. That doesn't work out. So he asks her to kill him, and she does.
Right.
The little goblin kid comes back leads her out of the basement. Leatherface chases her with the chainsaw through the basement, but she does eventually get out. And then she runs through the kind of forested area there, and she finds another trailer with lights on. She goes in the trailer. There's like a big old lady, an old lady,
Yeah.
and then a younger lady with like really short hair. Um, and they're very, like, hey, drink your tea, drink your tea, drink your tea, like over and over and over again. Say they don't have a phone, and then all of a sudden the phone rings. So obviously they were lying to her. There's a baby there who they had seen a picture earlier and thought that the baby was the child of the girl that killed herself in the car, or at least part of her same family. And so then she was screaming, "That's not your baby," and whatever. And then she gets drugged and then passes out and wakes up again back in the house.
Right. Just so we can get our table scene.
Right. Yeah. So we can get our typical, Texas Chainsaw, evil dinner scene.
Right.
Again, they don't show them eating people in this one,
No.
but it's kind of implied that that's what is happening here, right?
Yes.
But yeah, eventually the she does kind of sort of get away. I remember Arlie Ermy dies in the escape attempt because she eventually runs away, and then she meets up with the truck driver. And then the truck, anyway, I believe the truck driver goes to the gas station and he gets attacked as well. Whatever, she gets in the cop car and then runs over Arlie Ermy with the cop car several times.
Yes, absolutely.
And then drives away with the cop car.
Yep.
I probably forgot some shit in there, but whatever. That's the gist.
Yeah. Well, the other guy that was like tied up, he was hanging from the chandelier and got chainsawed from the bottom up. But yeah. Well, and then she does cut off. You're talking about the end, right?
Right.
She does take the baby.
Right. But the baby disappears.
Yes.
Like, she takes the baby, but the baby is not in the car. The baby is nowhere to be found.
Correct.
Or whatever. And then then she gets hit with the truck, their tow truck or whatever.
Right.
And then they go into the meat plant. And then Leatherface chases her around. And then she somehow hacks his arm off with
a meat cleaver.
Meat cleaver that she had found in there. There's a big cat and mouse like throughout the whole meat.
Right, going through like the carcasses there and him like moving around and all that.
Right. Yeah. Her screaming every time a meat thing touches her, which is, obviously that's how he keeps finding her. He's just using like meat sonar by slapping her around. Anyway, so she jumps out of the locker, chops his arm off with a meat cleaver, and then runs away. And then he, obviously Leatherface is having a hard time picking up his chainsaw with one hand. So he's like slapping his own arm around trying to get it off of the chainsaw. And then does his, frustrated Leatherface dance.
Right. And the last scene is like cops going to this incident and they're like, oh, there's 2 cops died. And like, oh, the last known footage that they saw was Leatherface there attacking them.
Right.
With one arm.
Yeah. So like apparently Leatherface got away, but the rest of the house or the family is still there. Whatever.
Yep. End of movie.
Yes.
So what are your first thoughts? Did you see this in the theaters?
No. I didn't see it in the theater, but I saw it it was around that time. I want to say I probably watched it around 2005-ish. I mean, it wasn't that long before the second one came out. Because remember, I watched this one with a bunch of friends and we liked it. And so then when the next one came out, we made sure we rented it like that way. Because yes, there was still rentals at that time.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely saw this in theaters. Um, and at this point in time, I had watched the other four movies in preparation for this one coming out. I don't think I realized at the time it was going to be a remake. And there's just even on rewatches, like the mill they go to is the Sawyer family mill, which is the name of the family from the original, but they changed it to like Hewlett or Hewitt.
Right. And just for later reference, the slaughterhouse, the meat packing place, was called Blair Meats.
Why?
Well, they in the next movie it's different. I'm bringing it up now because it very clearly says Blair Meats on the side of the building.
Isn't it
In the next
Lee?
film, it is the next film it is an identical building, in the same place, but it's called Lee Brothers
Yeah.
Meats. So it's the same, like it's supposed to be a sequel to the same movie, but I don't know why they changed that of all things. I mean, it's
It's
very
weird. Maybe the other one place burned down. Who knows?
I don't know. I was like, okay, I guess there's technically 4 years in between. Maybe somebody else bought it, changed the name, and then went out of business again in 4 years. I don't know.
We'll get to that meat market, that meat factory, in the low points of the next one. I promise you. So what are your highlights then for this?
uh, there's a few. I mean, one is they got John Larroquette to come back to do the opening narration. Who was the guy who did the same one in the original movie? That was a plus. That kind of gives more energy to this. I know that like Toby Hooper was actually a producer on this, so he wasn't like not involved at all. I don't know his level of involvement, but at least he was kind of involved. At least he got paid a little bit for it, right? Now I will say Jessica Biel is great in this movie. If I had my pick of any of the final girls from like any horror film of the last, I don't know, what, 50 years, I would probably choose Jessica Biel from this movie.
Yeah,
Number one,
easily.
for sure.
Easily.
For me, number one for sure. Anyway, she's fantastic. I would say the suicide in the van is probably like a more believable hook than the creepy hitchhiker that cuts himself and lights pictures on fire with with gunpowder. I guess it's just to me it just felt like a better kind of hook to get us involved. Obviously, I'm not saying this is comparable to the original. I'm just saying I thought that was a more believable way to get people involved in the darkness of this family and this world right away.
Yeah.
I already talked about how Pepper was the Wiccan in Blair Witch 2, which I was just like, wow, really? When I was looking through the cast, I was like, that's messed up. Arlie Ermy is great in this movie.
Oh, easily.
Very unnerving, very puts you on edge, but I mean, that's that drill sergeant in him, right? That's what he does. He's very direct. He never looks away. I don't think he ever blinks.
I don't think so.
Yeah, he's very intense, but I guess he's supposed to be. That's his whole kind of thing. But he's great in this movie. Leatherface looks so much better
Yes.
in this movie compared to the last two movies. He looks so much better. He's back to having less, like, you can tell it's like a sewn together skin meat face. He even puts on a fresh, meat face in this movie. Like, I mean, the chainsaw is there. It is, he's covered in blood all the time. Like, this is the Leatherface that and she should have been in the last two films, but was not there at all. He was kind of like a comedic relief in the last two. Almost.
I would even say I'd argue in 2 he is comedic relief too.
Yeah, but two, the whole thing was insane.
Right.
Everybody was a caricature, so it was like you can't really single him out. But the last two is like everybody else was trying to be serious, and then Leatherface was goofy for some reason. But anyway, he looks much better. In this one, the basement is so much more creepy, right? That house, just the state of the house, the way that the basement is all like fucked up. There's water all over the floor. There's like fingers and bones and meat and hair and blood everywhere down there. It is disturbing. I mean, obviously they had more money and time to do it. And this one, I'm just saying, like, comparatively, I like this basement lair. This is a messed up place to be,
Right.
and it looks like the way that it should. They did a great job with the blood and the viscera effects in this movie.
Oh, easily.
It is. It looks great. It looks, when things are being cut and bleeding and all that, it looks exactly how you expected. It was great. I like that they had like a weird kind of like not just that family living in that house. It was kind of like, there's at least a few other trailers, houses around there that are all like on board with it. So it's almost like a weird, hill folk cannibal
Well,
village
it's
out
it's
there.
essentially the people left in the town.
Right. But I'm saying like they're all like on board,
Right.
which is interesting. It makes more sense as to why people wouldn't know about it.
Yeah.
And I did like the cop found footage, and I thought it was hilarious that they were actually using like 70s era sound and recording equipment.
He's holding the
'Cause, like-
microphone attached to the camera. Yeah.
Right, yeah, he's holding it. Yeah, the microphone attached to a sound box that's literally like the size of a suitcase,
Right.
being held by a strap over his shoulder. I thought that was great. And obviously the film is in black and white and very grainy and shit as it should be for that
Yeah.
time. But yeah, that's okay. That's all I got for highs.
Yeah, I will agree. Jessica Biel, fantastic. Arlie, Ermi is amazing. Like, he stole the movie in a way that, like, I felt the cook and the brother did in the first one. Like, he was just a combination of kind of both, right? Because let's face it, the guy in the wheelchair and the mama, they didn't really do anything.
No, they were just like, again, it's messed up when you have like people that are on board.
Right.
You know what I mean? When you realize an entire household is on board with fucked up stuff like that, that's, to me, is more disturbing than just one evil person.
Right.
Is having like an entire evil family that's all okay with this.
Right. There's no Franklin in this movie. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, Morgan, as annoying as he was, is a hell of a lot better than Frank.
To me, he reminded me of Matt Stone. Yeah, which is what's interesting about this is that it's not Sally Hardesty, it's Aaron Hardesty in this that is Jessica Biel's character. They kept the last name, which is weird. What they kept and what they didn't keep, but the homages that you got, you understood the references to kind of everything. They did pay a lot of tributes to really the first one and maybe two. So I think in that aspect, they did their homework, right? They just kind of made it just, what if these normal looking people were also crazy? Like the hitchhiker guy in the first one, the original one. Okay, you looked at him like, okay, something's wrong with him. But if you see the old lady or the guy in the wheelchair or Arlie, like, okay, they're just normal people.
Right. At first.
Right.
Yeah,
it's not the overtop, let's say Batman villainess that was Bill's Mosley in the second one.
Right.
So I did appreciate the homages. I think that you're right. The gore and viscera in this one and the next one are spectacular.
Yeah. The next one is also very good.
So
in that respect.
Yes. So I think they did a good job of trying to like keep the essence in mind with this remake. Now, that all being said, I'll roll into my low points. Okay, this movie is too clean again. In comparison.
Too clean.
The house. Like, yeah, the basement is great and stuff like that, but the rooms in the house, other than the basement, weren't anything out of the ordinary that you wouldn't see in the essentially plantation that should have gone away 150 years ago.
That's bad.
I'm just saying, I felt like it was too clean for essence. They didn't have like the bone room.
Well, okay. In the first one, it was 3 dudes.
Yeah.
One of whom was like, borderline mentally challenged. One of whom was definitely mentally challenged and wore a skin mask. And the third guy was the cook and was working at the gas station all the time. Who's going to clean that house?
That's fair.
And this one, they got Mama, who literally ain't got no other job. We see her ironing pants. We see her cleaning and cooking. Like, I mean, she could easily keep that house in order.
Yeah.
And like I said, the first one makes a lot of sense because three dudes, if you've ever lived with all dudes before, they can be very, very messy.
Yeah, that's fair.
And nobody wants to clean up.
The wardrobe person of this movie went to Aeropostale and bought the 70s retro collection because those are very modern outfits for what's supposed to be 1970.
Well, here's what they did: is they took like 70s vintage, as I'm using that in quotes, right? Vintage clothes made to vintage standards, and then they wore them in modern ways.
Yes.
So yeah, they're technically they technically have 70s clothes, but yes, they are more modern configuration of vintage clothes for sure.
Yeah. And I thought about this the first time I saw it, and I thought about it on the rewatches too. Some of the kills seem censored. Right? Like,
well, I mean, this killing people with chainsaws and shit are one of the things that like to get cut.
yes.
When they like to rate them X or NC-17, which X or even sometimes NC-17 can be a death knell for a movie because it severely limits who can see.
Right.
So a lot of times they'll have to cut stuff out. I don't know if this is one of them. I didn't look that up at all, but
well, and
yeah,
like
they do that.
Like when the guy was hanging by the chandelier, I'm like, oh shit, this is gonna be gruesome and gory, and nothing. I thought that'd been more gory and gruesome at that point. Like that kill in particular seemed very censored to me. I feel that this movie should come out in 2000 and actually 4 to be actual 30 years later. It's just weird they wouldn't just have done it as a 30-year anniversary type thing.
Well, I believe they were trying to. I mean, this movie was one of those ones that was stuck in development hell for years.
Yeah. So I'm just nitpicking at this point.
Yeah, because I believe in the beginning of this, because I mean, Tobe Hooper and Kim Henkel, the original people from the first one, were going to be involved, heavily involved, actually write the script for the movie and all that kind of stuff. And eventually, a lot of that fell apart, as it normally does in development hell movies.
Right.
People depart and things change and all that shit. And it did change, but from what I understand, it didn't get to the point where they detached themselves from the movie.
Yeah. But that all being said, is Michael Bay and his Platinum Dooms company decided to do this, and I blame this movie for the soulless remakes that we got in the aughts.
That's for sure. That is definitely on my list as well, because this movie is good.
Yes.
Right? But all of everybody was like, "Oh, remakes are good. Let's remake everything."
Yes.
And then everything else sucked.
Yes.
Well, I'm going to say most of everything else sucked.
Correct. So I blame Michael Bay for that.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, it's his Platinum Dooms company that made all these soulless horror remakes. So I blame him.
Right.
That's what I got. What are your low points?
I will say there was, I think, way too much shaky cam use in this movie.
Oh, for sure.
Every time anything even remotely scary is happening, it's shaky cam fucking all over the place, and you can barely see what's happening because the camera's wiggling all over the place. I guess it was very popular at this point in time, but it feels like a found footage thing, and this is not a found footage movie. I don't know why people.
Oh, except the first part and the end part.
Well, yeah, but that I understand it's supposed to be,
right?
But whatever, the rest of it's goofy. I mean, the colostomy bag sexual assault, not good. Nobody likes seeing that. Again, I was just keeping time here because you said it with the first movie. It was 45 minutes before the chainsaw appeared. So the movie was about half over before the chainsaw made an appearance. just so you know, I was just keeping I was keeping
like that.
track
I
of all
like that.
the
I got that going.
yeah, I kept track and everything. And again, like I said, I have the remake Frenzy on here as well. But I will also one last thing before we move on here is that Jessica Biel, and I don't know if whoever knows her history, was in the beginning of her career was well known as a like kind of a goody two shoes good Christian girl
Mhm.
because she was in the Seventh Heaven show. That's where she like made her name.
Right.
And she was like very heavily cast as like the good girl, right? And she like did everything she could to break out of that role. And she had one role before this movie. It was some stupid like sports comedy movie. Supposedly she gets risque in that movie. I don't know. I didn't watch it. But the one that really changed her from being the good girl into a like normal quote unquote actress was this movie.
Right.
So yay for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I got.
All right. So why don't you go first? How many bone sculptures out of 10 do you give this movie?
Again, I like this movie. It's a movie that I've rewatched a couple of times since then, and I've enjoyed it. I don't think it's as good as the first one or even the second one, but I think it's still pretty good. So I'll give it a 7. Give it 7 bone sculptures out of 10.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I said when I first saw it, I did the rewatch and everything like that. Obviously, we're doing the rewatches for the podcast, and now we're 5 movies deep into the franchise. I still think this holds up pretty damn well. Do I like it more than 2 and 1 like you? Like, as you said, no. I think it's still a pretty solid outing in this franchise. I think it's a kind of a breath of fresh air that this needed. I will give it 8 bone sculptures out of 10. Like I said, if it wasn't Michael Bay, if it didn't bring me all the horrible, shitty remakes, it probably would have been higher.
But yeah, no, it was good. I was genuinely surprised at how good it was. Like, because I had my roommates at the time were notorious for watching just horrible movies. So whenever they would suggest a movie to me, it was always like the worst fucking movie I had seen up until that point in my life, always. And so they suggested this movie, and I'm like, oh great, here we go.
Yeah.
So I made sure I had a case of beer. Before then, I was like, I'm ready. Let's do this. And I was very surprised. I was very surprised how good it was.
Yeah. All right. Well, then I will wrap up the episode with Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning, the sequel, prequel.
Yeah,
2006.
Yeah. Well, I'd probably skip this one. Well, I'll keep it short, right? But like, there's not a whole lot of really interesting stuff that happens. But so we get 2 brothers, Dean and the other guy.
Yes.
I don't remember. I only remember Dean because they say his name like 100 fucking times. But it's Dean and the other guy anyway. Dean, this is 1969, so this is 4 years previous.
Yes.
Dean just got drafted to go to Vietnam. His older brother, had already been to Vietnam and come back. So what they're doing is they're driving cross country from where they live. I don't know if they ever said exactly where they live. I don't think it doesn't matter.
They had a Texas license plate.
Yeah, so they're driving from where they live, and they're driving them to where they're going to be shipping out from.
California.
Right. So, and they're kind of doing a road trip with their girlfriends, their respective girlfriends, to go, to California to ship out. But we're having like a one kind of, like a road trip send off kind of thing where we're, they're all just having fun kind of thing, right? Yep. And we do, I mean, whatever, I'm just going to say it now because we don't really find out until later. But essentially, the only reason the older brother is going back is because his brother is going back. His brother got drafted. He's going back in the military to like watch out for him in whatever capacity he can. That's the only reason he's going back. He doesn't want to. He's playing it off like he is, but he's doing that for his brother. Anyway, so we find out that the guy that's going back for his brother is obviously kind of gung ho. He already went once, and he's going again for him. The other one does not want to go.
No.
Him and his girlfriend are basically planning on when they get to California, he's gonna take the left and he's gonna go down to Mexico.
Boys like Mexico.
Yeah, so he's gonna go to Mexico to avoid the draft altogether. Obviously, he hasn't told his brother this, but that's what's gonna happen. So, whatever, they have like a couple of hotel stays where they're like, doing their whatever party makeout thing and stuff. Anyway, so they're driving down the road and they get kind of accosted by like a group of bikers who are like just messing with them and like kicking their car and slapping their mirrors and stuff like that. Nothing, they're just playing.
Of all things that they could have done, that was fine.
Right. Yeah, they didn't. I mean, I think they cracked one of his mirrors, but like, honestly, that's not much they could have done there. They're just kind of introducing those biker characters.
Right.
So they get to the gas station. This is recognizable as the same gas station from the first movie. The same old lady behind the counter, Mama, is there. And she, well, I guess, is the slaughterhouse thing before this or after?
Oh, way before, 30 years before.
Oh, well, whatever. We'll get to the point where they leave the gas station, and then I'll do a flashback.
Yeah.
So, they're basically like, the one girl is gonna tell the other girl that, oh, we're gonna go to Mexico, and so they're gonna go in the back. They're gonna go in the bathroom to discuss this. They go in the back, and they find out that all the bikers are just hanging out in the back of this place.
But only
So
two of them inside.
Yeah, only two of them inside. The two that essentially we care about, right? The only two that do anything in this movie are inside. It's a guy and a girl. The guy you've probably seen in a bunch of other movies. He's been in a shit ton of stuff. Then the girl was like, I guess they're together. Whatever, it doesn't matter. So they get kind of spooked. They kind of leave, go back to the car. After they get their gas, they just leave. Sorry, flashback to the beginning of the film. I guess I left the part out. Leatherface is abandoned as a baby
because he has his disease. He's skin disease.
Right. Yeah, his mom works at the slaughterhouse and essentially died giving birth to him on the floor of the slaughterhouse.
Yes.
And the slaughterhouse folks were nice enough to just throw the baby in the dumpster instead of doing anything. So they throw the baby in the dumpster. Some other lady comes and finds it. We're assuming it's, I don't know, Mama.
I'm pretty sure it's Mama.
Yeah. So Mama is digging through the dumpster of the slaughterhouse trying to find scraps to eat because their family is super poor.
Yeah.
And so they find this baby. She brings the baby back to raise, which, they never really say what's wrong with it. He got some kind of skin disease, and he's also like mentally handicapped in some way. But he's like an idiot savant when it comes to butchering.
Right.
So he kind of grows up being the like butcher that butchers all of the cattle in this meat processing plant. And so 30 years later, they shut the plant down and he's still like chopping meat. And they're like trying to tell him like, this plant is shut down. You have to stop working. Like the doors are going to be locked as soon as you leave. Like you need to stop. And so the guy in charge is the same guy that let his mom die. Yeah. I mean, we haven't seen things that he's done, but we can assume that he's a shitty person. He's probably done shitty things.
Well, the way he talks to him.
Right. Yeah, we assume he's a shitty person, does shitty things. The one guy calls him like a stupid animal or something, and then he goes up and the other guy calls him another name, whatever. He kills the guy with a hammer.
And he gets his chainsaw.
Yeah, so he gets the chainsaw on the table because I guess they keep chainsaws on the desks of
supervisors,
meat processing plants. Yeah, okay, sure.
Yes.
But that's how he gets it. So then we get the opening montage of him, kind of growing up and
age 11, kills his 80th cow, whatever.
Right, yeah, whatever. Just goofy stuff like that. Anyway, that's the intro that we get before this point. Sorry, I forgot. Anyway. So then they leave the gas station and they're driving. Then they get the girl that was at the bar, the biker girl that was at the bar, chases them down on the street
by herself.
She brings out a Mad Max sawed-off double-barreled
Hell yeah, she
shotgun
does.
and threatens them to pull over. They don't. The older brother pulls a gun out of his um, glove box and goes to shoot at her and then misses the cow that's in front of them, and they hit the cow and it explodes.
Yes, it very much
It
explodes.
literally explodes. I call it the cow explosion. So it explodes. The car crashes. The motorcycle crashes. They kind of get up. The biker lady is fine. Starts shaking the gun around, like just robbing them. Um, Older brother is relatively okay. Younger brother and his girlfriend are in the back, kind of sort of messed up,
And
but like
Jordana Brewster is thrown clear out of the movie for a while.
yes, yeah, yeah, exactly. Thrown clear into a ditch, and then they're like, we don't know where she is. So anyway, she's trying to like rob them, and they're trying to like recover from a car accident and like figure out what the hell they're going to do. As this is happening, a cop pulls up. I guess I forgot another part. Anyway, a cop pulls up, and it's Arlie Ermy. He gets out, just shotguns the biker lady.
Yep.
Pretends like he's going to help everybody else, but instead just kind of corrals them all into his car. And the older brother tells, he sees his girlfriend at this point, but just tells her to stay down.
Right.
Sorry, continuation from the flashback of before. Leatherface, who's not called Leatherface in this movie, he's just called Tommy. Tommy leaves the slaughterhouse and just starts walking home down the road.
Now, keep in mind, if you look at the first movie, it's only like a 5-minute run.
Right. Yeah, again, time, stretches and dilates depending on story needs around the land around this area. So the sheriff gets called to their house going like, hey, you got to jump in here. And it's Arlie Ermy, but Arlie Ermy is not a cop.
Right.
The sheriff is somebody else.
Yes.
So he's like, you got to come with me to get the boy. He just killed somebody. We got to go get him and arrest him, So as he's going with them, we find out, the cop, the whole town is dead. Like there's nothing left. The last business in town was the meatpacking plant. It just shut down. There's literally nothing. And him as the sheriff, he's literally leaving in a week anyway. Like nothing is going to be
right.
The whole town is dying. So they meet up with Tommy Leatherface. The sheriff gets out, holding the gun, and like, Tommy, you need to come with me. You're under arrest. Arlie Ermy gets out, shotguns the sheriff to the back of the head, and takes his clothes. He brings it home. Mama cleans it up for him. He puts it on, and then he becomes the new sheriff.
Yep.
So he never earned his sheriff position. Now we know that. He just stole it from the other guy, who is much shorter than Arlie Ermy, but somehow his clothes match him.
Yes.
Anyway, so back to there. So he drives them all back to their house, right? And at this point, he basically convinces his family, Arlie Ermy, he convinces his family that we're never going to go hungry again. Now I'm the sheriff of these parts, and we're not going to go hungry because we're going to be eating people that are traveling through. And so he like shows them this like disgusting soup that he made with like apparently chunks from the biker lady. I don't know, whatever. I don't know how he cut everything up and made the soup, but he did. So we get the brothers are chained up in the garage, and the other girl is literally chained to the kitchen table.
Yes.
So the two brothers are then like, he finds the burned draft card, so he knows that one of them is a draft dodge.
That's because
the older brother, right? Yeah, the older brother speaks up and said, "Oh, it's my draft card. I burned it," and he saran wraps his head. The other guy says, "Oh no, it was me. We were lying." So he stabs a breathing hole in the saran wrap, and then forces the other guy, the younger brother, to do 20 push-ups while he's like beating him mercilessly with a billy club. And he says, if you can finish these 20 push-ups, you can just walk away. And so he beats the crap out of him as he's doing that. And then after he's done with his 20, Arlie Ermy just leaves
Yep.
and leaves him sitting on the ground. So the older brother manages to break himself free, picks up his brother, and then instead of leaving, he like hides his brother behind a fence and then goes in the house, sees the other girl like chained to the table, tries to save her, and Tommy comes in, you know, grabs him and then brings him down into the basement to become apparently his first butchering victim as a person butcher.
Right.
Because Arlie Ermy has to like walk him through the process on like it's okay to kill him. He was a jerk and he did bad things, blah blah, whatever. So that's when we get his first like, I guess, he doesn't really kill him. He just kind of like tortures him.
Yeah.
He like skins his arms. He's like doing all kinds of weird shit. But he's like, anyway, while he's walking him through it, and then Andy again, I think, comes in after that because he never comes back, and then he gets, I think, knocked out. I don't know. I couldn't remember. I was trying to remember what the hell happened to him later on, earlier today, and I couldn't remember. Anyway, he does show up a little bit later.
Yeah.
So the girlfriend, the one that survived the plane crash, the car crash, she makes it to the house. She's kind of watching this stuff happen from outside the windows. She sneaks in the house, gets in the basement, and then finds him all like skinned up and messed up. And so she's like, "Oh, I got to help you." She's trying to like unlock him from these like shackle things, and she can't do it. Leatherface comes back in. She hides underneath the butcher table, witnesses him getting, chainsawed to death.
Chainsaw through him and the table.
Yeah, through him and the table, like literally sitting right next to her underneath the table.
Yeah.
So he dies, and then we see kind of a graphic scene where he cuts his face off and then wears it as his own face, which I'm guessing is the first time that he's supposedly put it, because before that time he was just wearing like a leather mask.
Think of Mankind from the 1990s wrestling era.
Sure. But yeah, so now he has his official meat face. There. So of course Arlie Ermy approves. I like your new face, boy.
Boy.
All right. So yeah, so that's that whole thing. Is she? I don't know what she tries. She tries to save the girl at this point because she realizes that her boyfriend's dead.
Right.
And then she goes to try to save the girl. She doesn't manage to get her out, and she manages to get captured herself.
Yep, because it's time for.
Yeah, of course, the Texas Chainsaw, supper table of disturbing things. So at the supper table is the girl, Dean. Andy and Dean look so much alike. I was like, in the beginning of it, I was like, is this the same dude? Because they have the same haircut. They look the same. Anyway, so Dean is like, just laying on the table. The girl is like just sitting there, like obviously messed up. The old lady is cutting her hair for some reason. And then she's like, the other girlfriend is tied to a chair. And so Arlie Ermy kind of goes into another speech about how, they need to eat people to stay alive, and, whatever. This is their town now. They need to, support themselves or whatever nonsense he's talking. So we then see that the girl that was chained to the table, Dean's girlfriend, has her tongue has been cut out, and possibly her teeth were also removed. And then they just decide to slash her throat at the table. Yep. And then she bleeds out, and the old lady keeps saying over and over again that Dean is dead. Oh, he's dead, honey.
He's gone.
Yeah, he's gone.
And he's not.
Yeah, he's obviously not. I forgot the other dude. I guess he doesn't matter. But
the biker dude? No, not really.
Yeah, there was a biker. The other biker dude that was the lady's friend in the bar. He came in at this point, I think, when she was trying to save her boyfriend, and he came in and he shot the guy that
Uncle Monty,
has no legs. Yeah, the guy who has no legs in the first one of these, but has his legs in this one. He gets shot in the leg by that guy. He then tries to look for the girl, which he thinks is going to lead him to the other biker girl, but he leads her to the other girlfriend, and then Arlie Ermy kills him.
Right. And remember, Uncle Monty loses his legs because he had a gunshot wound. The best way is amputation. And, you cut off one leg. Well, that's not going to work well. Yeah, even it up.
Yeah, even it out, cut off both his legs, which is...
You'll be fine.
Again, Arlie Ermy at this point is obviously this, like, has lost his mind.
Oh, yes.
So I wouldn't put it past him that this would make sense to him at that time. And that Tommy, in his, proto Leatherface stage is just literally doing whatever he tells him to do because he doesn't know what else to
right.
do. So yeah. So then okay, so then we're back to the only one left alive at this point. Oh, is the girl. They bring the girl out to do something with her, and then Andy wakes up. Like, so, apparently they don't know how to check if people are really dead or not. I guess that they're new to this game. They haven't understood that if people are breathing, they're not dead yet. So he wakes up, and then he tries to attack. I don't remember what the hell happened.
He attacks Arlie and bashes his head in.
Right.
A lot.
Right. Right. Oh yeah, it smashes his teeth out because we see in the first one of these, he like pulls out his teeth as if like he had dental work done. And I guess, yeah. So I guess in this one we see that this is how he got his dental work done.
Yes, this is Plot Points, the prequel.
Right. Yeah. So then he gets killed at that point, but the girl manages to make it to a car, or
she makes it back to she makes it back to, well, they both make it to the slaughterhouse. This is where he gets chainsawed up through the body, and she gets the old supervisor's, the dead supervisor's keys. And that's where she gets the car from.
Okay. Yeah, so she gets the keys, and then she's driving, and she sees like people up the road, and she thinks she's like home free, and then Leatherface like pops up in the back seat and then chainsaws her through the chair seat.
Yes, the 300-pound, 6-foot something guy was very quiet in the back seat the entire time.
But why would he be quiet? Like, he's not a quiet. Like,
also, she was driving around crazy.
Has a zero in stealth.
That car is bucking around a lot. For someone in the back seat that's not strapped in to not be flopping about in the back is
right.
But she has to be dead.
I mean,
there's no reports of it until the 1973 incident.
Right. So. Yeah. So then we get the after he chainsaws her, he gets up out of the car and then walks his Charlie Brown walk down the street like he was, when they picked him up originally. And then we get John Larroquette that pipes in and says that they killed 33 more people before the events of the first reboot.
From 1969 to 1973, 33 people were found dead. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And that's it.
Yes. I remember watching this. Did not see this in theaters. I don't think. I remember watching this and going, "What the hell happened?" Between the last one and this one, like the first one, the 2003 one was good. This one was just, like I said, minor plot points in the first one. The reasons for it. It's like, I'm not saying Rogue One is bad, but it's like Rogue One being the movie of why the Death Star has that hole in it. This movie is why do these people have skin faces? Why is he missing teeth? Why does he have no legs? This is why.
Well, it's all the questions that nobody really needed answered.
Correct.
and they answer them all. Oh, that's interesting that he's missing teeth. I need to know that story. I don't care. Yeah. Oh, this guy's missing his legs. Like, okay, like they live in a slaughterhouse in their fucking basement. That's the least weird thing about this house.
Right.
I don't need that explained to me.
The weirdest thing is how he survived by just getting butcher paper on his legs to fix it.
Right. Oh, he did get some salt rubbed in it too.
Sure, that works. I mean, what are your first thoughts and rewatches? Do you remember?
I believe I only saw this once, and it was with the same group that we watched the original Texas Chainsaw. Because again, when I finally got around to watching it, I believe it was just on, like, we rented it, but it had already been out for a while.
Okay.
And we watched it, and then I knew that this was coming up soon. So we all watched it together again, and it was like, wow, that was a step down.
Yes.
Yeah, that was basically what I thought was like, wow, that was a step down. It's not horrible, but it's not nearly
No.
as good. It's a kind of a poor sequel to that reboot.
Right. I'll go with my highlights first. Is finally they're cannibals again, like blatant cannibals, I guess. But even that happening, they're like, we're hungry. Cool. Let's be cannibals. All right. That didn't take very much convincing in the slightest.
Oh, okay, well, you got to realize that Arlie Ermy just murdered the sheriff, and then decided to become the sheriff, and is like obviously having a mental fucking break.
Right.
So, like, what is the family gonna say?
Yeah.
At this point, he's already like literally had Tommy chainsaw off his uncle's legs, who is probably the only one that would have said anything. And we know even before that point, he didn't want to get involved.
Right.
He said like, "Oh, I don't get involved in his business." He said that to somebody else
Yeah.
earlier. So, like, obviously before then he was trying to avoid him, and now that he's stepped off the fucking deep end, he's like, "Nope, I am not saying shit."
Yeah. I thought that the even up was a good showing descent into madness of Arlie in this movie.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Even Uncle Monty's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Um, it's nice that Toby was still involved with this. I appreciate that. I think the reason why the gore and special effects are so good is because who did it? Nick Taro.
Yeah,
I know. And I felt this movie was quite brutal with its kills. This movie definitely had the most chainsaws through people that we've seen in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
that's correct.
So I like,
There was at least 3 people killed with the chainsaw.
yes, in the same way, through the same spot.
Actually 4. No, the biker guy got it with
Yep.
the chainsaw too.
There you go. So yes, they really upped the kill count with chainsaws in this movie. That's what I have. What are your highlights?
Highlights. I really did like that intro montage that they did to kind of like, the burnt sienna old footage,
Yeah.
like 9 years old, 12 years old, like the way that they just kind of you did that over the credits. I thought that was pretty nifty. The cow explosion was pretty epic. It just looked like a I don't know, a grenade went off inside the cow. Arlie Ermy was great, and I will say he was great in probably about the first half of this movie.
Yes.
The first half of this movie, he was great. He was almost as good as he was in the 2003 version. But I will say he did get old as this movie went on. He just like as his like I guess descent into madness was happening. He like seemed to make less and less sense, and his kind of like that intimidation that he normally has kind of like faded out because it was just like wackiness.
Yeah, it became the Arlie Ermy show.
Right. Yeah. It was like all about him, and like he was in control of everything, and he would even like made Leatherface who he was, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I
Right.
like that. But what I thought the skinning effects particularly were good. That was like when he was skinning his arms, when he was skinning his face, like that looked very good and disturbing.
Yes.
But it was done well, and I mean it was a terrible ending. Everybody died. And like none of the like quote unquote bad guys died at all.
Correct.
Like I thought for sure they were going to introduce another like bad character and then at least kill one of them, but nope. Nobody
Heroes
on that
dead,
side died
villains
at all.
live. Yay.
Yeah, that's all I got for high
Why don't
points.
you roll on your low points?
Low points. That people soup.
Yep.
Was fucking gross. It was like the grossest meat chunks I think I've ever seen. It just looked like boiled meat, but like not even boiled all the way. It was like boiled raw.
Yeah.
Oh, it looks so gross. But I guess it was supposed Bikers aren't all that bad, right? Like, I mean, they always, I know they always in movies they always play up bikers as being these horrible, horrible people. Like most of them just like the freedom of the road. They don't like to be tied down.
Right.
They're not always out to fuck with regular innocent people. There are some. I'm not gonna say they're all like that, but like they always get a bad rap.
Yes.
And I thought it was just funny that they had this whole big gang, and then like when one of them dies, like only one other person shows up to look for them. Like they had a whole gang. What the fuck happened to the rest
Well, see, they became too expensive for the rest of the movie. So they laughed.
of them? Right, right. Now, this movie, the chainsaw did not show up until just over an hour in. Like he had the chainsaw in the beginning, but he did not start.
Yes.
And the chainsaw was shown a couple of times, but it was not started or used. Even though he killed at least 4 people with it, it was not started until over an hour into the film.
Yeah.
I'm just keeping up with checking when chainsaws are involved in the movie. So this one was over an hour before the chainsaw started up. Like the coaching of Tommy, I thought was unnecessary. Like he was obviously like violent and off to begin with, and like somebody like even kind of slightly pissed him off and he just like straight up murdered him in cold blood. I don't think he needed any help.
Right.
I don't think he needed to be convinced to kill or butcher a person. I think he just could have asked nicely and he would have been all about it. But yeah, it's kind of made it seem like Arlie Emery had to coach him or like coax him into doing it, and really I don't think he did at all. I think that was just kind of a unnecessary to show Leatherface as like hesitant. I will say the second half of the movie, the first half was good. It was a good setup, like the characters had some strong performances and stuff, and then like the second half of it just felt kind of wacky. They're just like kind of like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. It was just like so many odd scenes and things happening. It was just odd. It felt like there was no real like coherence to it. Just all in all, strange. Like I said before, like the in the 2003 one, it's clearly called Blair Meat Company, and in this one, it is clearly called Lee Brothers Meat Company.
Yes.
Like same building, same location. It looks exactly the same, other than the name on it. I don't know why they would have missed that.
I don't know.
Yeah, and again, like, what the hell was the plot? The point of the biker B plot? I mean, there's no reason for them to be there.
We need more bodies.
They could have just.
That's it.
They could have just been distracted about the burning draft card, and he could have hit the cow. Yep. Right, done. There's no need for the bikers in any way. I don't understand why they did that. Maybe the guy was just a big fan of bikers or something. I don't know. But yeah, that's all I
got. This was not needed as a movie. I don't think it added anything to it other than the plot points that they needed to point out. Why does he have no legs? Yeah, like we discussed that. Okay, so this is going to be something for the first one, 2003, and this one. For a plant butchery being condemned to leave product there and say, we're done, someone's going to take that meat home first and foremost.
Well, yeah, like he's still chopping meat.
There's still product there.
Right, like
now, for them reverting to cannibalism really damn fast. First off, there's meat. Butchery. Right? And when they go in 1973 there's still pigs in cages at the same factory that's supposedly been condemned for 4 years. And cows were still there. That seems weird, right? I don't think pigs are going to live in a cage without being fed for 4 years. Just throwing that out there.
I mean, maybe Leatherface went back there and was like hanging out with them. I don't know.
Maybe. And like if they had that kind of meat still sitting there.
Maybe they shut down and then Lee Brothers came in 3 years later and opened up for a couple of months and then shut down again so that it was just freshly shut down. It certainly didn't look that way.
I mean, how many half of cows do you think were in that meat locker? 50?
Yeah, it was a lot.
Yeah. And
And like, okay, if there's that much meat left over, why do you need to eat people?
right, there's plenty of
Just
cow.
eat the meat that's in the
There's
freezer.
plenty of cow. Like there's like no
Right.
reason to go to Canada.
That's 4 years of food
Yeah,
there. Because obviously the power was still on because the freezer was still working. So like you have at least 4 years of sides of fucking beef in
right.
there,
Instead the
and you literally have the butcher living in your
right,
house. It's not like you don't know how to do it.
right, and it's like, oh, we have this big strong guy. We have all this meat here. I haven't eaten in about 6 hours. We should eat people. I'm
Right.
like,
Again, I just think this is R. Lee Ermey's like descent into
yeah.
madness. I think.
And I'm sorry if you are a cannibal. You still don't let your food flop onto the ground. They were so sloppy with their own food. Why her fingers on the ground? You should have better hygiene for that. I'm sorry. And then, of course, using the large tea lady neighbor as a doorstopper,
Right.
pushing her against the table because she's not going to just get up and move. That was bizarre. That's what I got. So, final, one for tonight. Number of bone sculptures out of 10. I think it's my turn to go first. Like I said, it's not a bad first half of the movie, but that, as you said, the second half really drags it down a lot. I know we had discussion before the show. Is this the worst one of the 6 that we've seen? I don't think so. I kind of like it more than Leatherface number 3, but not much more. I will give this. Let's see here. I'd say 5.5 bone sculptures out of 10. How about you?
Yeah, similar. Again, I think 3 has been my least favorite out of these so far. And yeah, I think it's definitely not as good as the rest of them here. I think I might like it the same as 4, so I'll get it's 5, flat
Flat
5
5.
bone sculptures out of 10. Yeah.
All right. Anything to add before we wrap it up?
That's it.
All right. Well, the AC's been cranked to 11. The chainsaw's been oiled, and we passed on the long pig. So join us next time as we finish the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise and beat the dog days of the summer. And remember, rewatch bad movies so you don't have to. And this has been Graveyard Saint. Have you checked on the children?
You know what long
Yes.
pig is? For all you folks that might not know, long pig is a secret code word for eating.
Yes.
Because we're long pigs. And this is Salem saying, long live the new flesh.
Good night.
Good night.